there we go. All right, that was a bit much. Good evening. How are we? It's been a while. I don't know if my streaming setup is working properly, so if you can't hear me, tell me if it just sounds like nothing's coming out. Got a couple people here. I wouldn't be surprised if not many people view this live. We haven't been around for a while. Actually, if I check my thing, I haven't been on since we had that AI discussion about a month ago. So, hi. How you doing? I guess I don't want to spend too much time tonight. There's a couple things I want to talk about, but I don't want to spend too much time tonight. The first thing I think I should do is tell you all what's been happening, why we haven't been doing content, because this isn't really my normal not doing content ish thing where we're kind of like, well, a lot of stuff has been happening. So, first off, about a month ago, about a month ago, I started experiencing a pain in my arm, a very severe pain, and I was doing something at the time. In fact, I was down in my basement and I was working on some Warhammer models and painting, and so I thought I had done something to it, and I said, okay, I'm going to stop painting, and I'm going to go ahead and turn around and go put ice on it, and I did that for 2 days, and it didn't get any better, or rather a day and a half, and it didn't get any better. So the thing you have to understand about dialysis patients is the way that dialysis is received is through very large needles, like 15, 16, 17 gauge needles. So like the needle that you might get if you're given an injection at a doctor's office is a very small needle. These are fuck off huge needles. And in order to allow your body to take that abuse repeatedly over and over again, modifications have to be made. What they do is there's a number of things they can do. The first is they can basically put a port in your chest running straight to your heart, and it pulls blood out and lets the dialysis run. This is less than ideal because you have now a giant infection magnet sitting in your chest going straight to your heart. So they don't like to do that for very long, if at all. This is an emergency measure mostly. They try not to let it happen that often. The ideal is to modify your body. Basically, you get a surgery on your one of your extremities, normally your arms, usually, or maybe your leg, and they take an artery and a vein and they start linking them together, and they create a very fast blood flow through this circuit, and this is called a fistula. And over time it thickens and it grows and it becomes something that can take the abuse of having needles stuck in your arm, giant fuck off needles stuck in your arm every 2 days. So, in order to receive dialysis, I have had a number of these placed. Actually, I had one placed in my left arm over a decade ago that clotted because this is a blood vessel ultimately, and then I had one put in my upper left arm, which also clotted, and then I had an artificial version of the same thing called a Gore-Tex graft. Gore-Tex is a fairly popular waterproofing material in certain jackets, military grade, for example. And I had that put on top of the one in my left arm that had clotted, and that also clotted. So they switched and they did a surgery on my right arm to put a dialysis access in. So, in my left arm, when I went to the hospital, they found a clot right at where they had done all that work on my left arm, the two fistulas and the graft. And the clot is pretty big. It's about an inch by an inch by an inch big. And it's causing a certain amount of pain. It's pressing in on an artery and one of my nerves, my ulnar nerve, which is the nerve that makes your elbow hurt if you hit your funny bone. It's been a month of getting tests done and preparing. And last week, my surgeon that I got referred to talked to me and said, what we have is a situation. You have what is effectively an aneuritic clot or a pre-aneuritic clot in your arm. And if we don't fix it, it could dislodge one day, possibly, and, give you a stroke or kill you. So I decided, and he's like, but I want to do, because you have all this work done in that arm that is not being used and has been clotted itself and has caused this problem. We're going to take all that out and reconstruct your vascular system in your arm vis-a-vis surgery. So I said, yes, let's do this because I don't like to die. And that has kind of, dealing with that has consumed a lot of what my bandwidth, how much I've been able to do throughout the weeks. I'm not getting stuff done. It's getting very frustrating. But for the next 2 days, I'll be going to get tests. The first is a vein mapping where they check my legs, and they're going to take material from my legs and use it to rebuild my arm. So modern medicine, wonderful thing. The second test will be a nuclear medicine test. They're going to tag my white blood cells, and they're going to use that tagging scans to determine where those blood cells are going and to verify that the clot is not infected, so that we don't do this repair and then a affection that was previously there takes hold again and reinfects it. So with that, and not really knowing what the recovery is going to look like, I am kind of unfortunately going to say that we're probably going to remain on a streaming hiatus for a little bit. I know a lot has been going on. I'm not unaware of these things. Both here in the United States, in Israel and Ukraine, all the three places we typically cover. A lot of alarming things are happening in the United States, and I see it. I'm there with you. I am scared with you in a way I don't think I have ever been before. And I regret that we're kind of having to sit this on the sideline for a minute, but insofar as what I am capable of doing and my ability to function throughout the day, I have to put that first. What part of the reason I'm in this particular situation is because I have in the past prioritized working on things over my health. To the extent that I ignored very serious signs of problems and in the past. I'm not doing that again. It's something I can't do. One of the things that scares the fuck out of me is right now, because I am in between jobs. I can't work. Some people can go on dialysis and they can get treated for 3, 4, 5 hours and hop up and go to a job and function. I can't. In fact, there's this new guy at the clinic. He's taken a plank of wood and put it across the armrest of the chair, and he has 2 fucking laptops and is doing his job while he's dialyzing. That man's insane. Just absolutely batty. So, I'm not one of those people, and mercifully for me, I am in a really kind of amongst the disabled, a privileged position. It's very difficult to get access to disability benefits in the United States. You typically have to fight for it. You typically have to employ a lawyer, which you already probably can't afford. And you have to engage in a lot of rigmarole. Unless, of course, you have gone on dialysis. If you've gone on dialysis, your disability request is automatically granted. Either there's basically 2 types of disability here. There's money that you have paid into Social Security yourself, effectively a down payment on your retirement fund that you have paid into, or there is a much more common for most people who are in this state, and a much more restrictive version of Social Security that works not unlike welfare. Disability that works not unlike welfare. I am fortunate enough that I receive a fairly hefty check. I had a very good job prior to myself getting ill, but it's been a while. I've been out of the workforce for a little bit. Nothing I see when I look at people applying for jobs gives me much hope. It actually looks far worse than anything I ever applied for in the past. And I am concerned about those things. I'm concerned about having to work for someone again. And there's a part of me that doesn't want to do that. And there's a part of me that would like to take this and turn it into something real. And that kind of brings me to Hetman's update, which I'm doing for him tonight because he's exhausted. Hetman is making the decision to begin applying for PhDs. And when he told me this, I was kind of, because we talked to a lot of professors, both of us, in our capacities as students of history. So we have a very, very solid handle on how fucking bleak the job situation is for academics right now. So when he told me this, I was kind of like, I wanted to know why, I guess, because he's very good at what he does. He is, I think, for what he specializes in, this particular region of Ukraine that he has studied the Holocaust in, possibly one of the best in the world. He also is he's holding on to some of the few remaining documents after the Russians destroyed the archive he was using. Um, he is in every way remarkably skilled as a historian. I know he's sometimes, and he knows he's an iffy presenter, but like that's what I'm here for, ultimately. But he is a remarkably skilled historian, very intelligent, very passionate about his topic. I think he could hold his own with any professor on the topic in the world. Uh, and so I was perplexed why he was choosing to do this, because you're setting yourself out on this goal. A PhD is a lot of work. It's a thankless job. Uh, you're setting yourself out on this goal, and he has the trepidation and the skill to do it. He doesn't need the PhD. So I was perplexed, and he said we talked about it, and it made a lot of sense what he said about his wanting to feel accomplished and his need because of the losses that have been suffered, and because of the loss to the records that have been suffered that are keeping him from building a complete picture. He feels the need to put a stamp on this and to make it official, even as both of us feel the pressure to just feel the pressure that is happening in academia all around the country, where a lot of professors are basically being forced out. It's becoming harder and harder to see a path for people to get quality education anymore. And this is not an accident. This is very much a sign of our times. This need to be able to capitulate to the ruling power's desires, in this case, the conservative and the Republicans' desires to have their ideology reflected in education, is going to lower the quality of education for generations in this country. It's not an uncommon pattern. You can see this happening in places like Hungary and more recently, or Nazi Germany. The people who got the money are the people for grants, the people who were allowed to study, the people who weren't disappeared in the night, are the ones who reinforce the beliefs of the people in power. So with that said, both of us feel that there is a limit and an end to the reliability of academic institutions in this country for being able to pass on to people vital knowledge about how their world has come to be and how they might live in it best, as in the most compassionate and empathetic lives. And both of us think that's important. You'll notice if you interact with Hetman, and I know not a lot of people do, that he tends to become enraged by injustice to a very severe degree, more than I am. I'm a much more emotionally flat person. So I want to start taking two guys talking history in a somewhat different direction, kind of a direction we've always wanted to go in. The direction I kind of originally envisioned for the channel was a kind of laboratory of teaching people how to learn history, because history is obviously too big for anyone to know all of history. That's why there's specialization. And so the original vision of this was to kind of do a deep dive into American history, starting with the history of indigenous American populations. And a lot of work before we launched the channel went into that. And then another direction got changed, where Hetman was asked to teach American history at a university in Ukraine, and he doesn't know much American history, so asked me to help, and we started developing a course for that. And all of that kind of got put on hold by the war, or rather the escalation of the war. And the channel, such as it was, I decided to take advantage of our rapport and our skills and launch it as a live streaming format with supplemental essays. Well, it turns out that video essay editing is tough, and I'm obviously not made of money. So getting someone to do that work while I do the research and is basically impossible. So we sat, and I've had a lot of long conversations about this, actually, because kind of how to solve this problem on a shoestring budget. And we have a solution, and we're going to be moving forward with that, and a couple different things are going to be happening. The first is we are adopting a AI suite of tools called Script, which it will allow for us to do text-based video editing. A couple people have highly recommended it. It might be a fairly solid use of AI, and that's going to launch for us this week, along with 2 simultaneous projects. The first is Hetman wants to take his master's thesis, which is an in-depth investigation of a number of crimes throughout the Chernihiv region of Ukraine committed by Axis forces in World War II, and start turning it into video essays. He's also reworking the entire thing to submit to PhD review boards, so he wanted me to look at that. So I'm going to do that and kind of try to break it down into a workable program that you will be interested in watching. The second is I have been sitting on, since October 7th, 2 years of ever escalating research on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Every time I try to hit an angle or do this, something happens and I am shut down again. My inability to get that done, and so I've finally buckled down. I've picked the end state for this, and I'm working furiously on getting a script written, getting markers made, everything done for it. That is really what we're going to start to try to do. We're obviously not making 2 streams a week, so we're not going to do 2 streams a week. Neither one of us is, particularly if he picks up a PhD and I am. If I have to start balancing certain aspects of life, if I try to get out of this particular side of my life on kidney disease, we're not going to be able to do 2 streams a week. It's just not going to happen. We're probably going to be sitting for a little longer for the 1 stream that remains. I'm going to try to start bringing in more guests, and we're going to start covering topics in new ways. I don't know, for example, what's happening with Sunday and the Fight the Empire streams. I'm going to approach him again on getting those back on track after he returns from his vacation or whatever the hell he's doing for the next week. He's flying out for his own stream tonight. And to see what's happening with that. If Sunday does not wish to continue it or does not show much energy in continuing it, I will continue this on my own. And I will continue the same format, and I don't think he'll mind if I take the resources we've already set up in the cathedral to do so, but I'll of course check. And we will be setting those up not as frequently as he might have said if it's just me, because it will just probably be me ultimately. And we're gonna probably push it in more contemporary directions, because I think that's where a lot more interest is going to lie. But the plan is to allow that to continue one way or the other, either as by myself without any assistance, or with the assistance of the individuals who were originally part of the project. Zanzi, for example, if you don't follow his YouTube channel, has announced that he is expecting his first child. So if you know Zanzi, congratulate him, because that's a big deal. So yeah, that's a really big deal. He does good stuff, even if he gets really upset about it and deletes it all after a couple months. He does really great stuff. You should go check that out. But that's kind of what we're at. It's obviously been a lot to deal with. I kind of get flippant about it. I cracked a joke. I did a count, actually. This will be my 8th or my 9th surgery, so I think I get the next one free. Punch card. But it's obviously a lot to deal with. I'm not particularly worried, but at the same time, we have people who are paying for support, and I appreciate it, by the way. Every once in a while, you buy me a lunch. And so I think you have a right to know what's going on. And so, like, that's why we haven't been doing much. I did the show with Maya because I made that appointment beforehand, a Bad Science Sunday. I made that appointment beforehand and basically was pretty well drunk during it. You might be able to tell. And I love doing Bad Science Sunday. It's a lot of fun. I see you there in the comments, Maya. Hearts. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it, it got taken down for a hot second because BuzzFeed are assholes. But that's successfully back up now. So if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it, because it was a good episode. It was a lot of fun. All in all, I think we're going to start pushing a lot more, because this tool, this suite, gives you a lot of tools that I think will help us ultimately, that basically do work that I don't have to do. It'll pull highlight moments from live streams and videos and turn them into shorts. automatically or semi-automatically. I just have to kind of give it a symbol where to look. It edits our audio, which is a big improvement. With it, thank you, Maya. I really appreciate that. Uh, it's a big improvement because, guys, I know you've watched some of my edited content. It's horrible. It's awful. It's not my skill set. I never intended when I went to school ever to become a multimedia anything at all. Wasn't anything I was ever interested in. Wasn't anything I ever thought I'd be doing. YouTube was obviously a thing when I was in college, but like it was a niche thing. Like my entry to YouTube, where I really started understanding it as a cultural thing, was with the atheist movement. Thunderfoot, DPR Jones, Aaron Ra, Thinking Atheist. Like I was coming out of the Catholic Church at that time, and like a lot of ex-religious people, I had a lot of anger around my experience with the religion. I felt lied to. Um, so I was for a while that aggressive, mean, asshole atheist type that you find sometimes, and I rooted on that kind of content. Every once in a while, I'll joke about my original YouTube drama that I saw, DPR Jones and Thunderfoot versus Venom Fang X. And if you I don't know how much of that is remaining online, but that was a wild trip. There were Batman suits and Heath Ledger impressions. The Dark Knight was a thing around that time, and I had a lot of anger. So Pat Condell, although he quickly lost me with the "we should kill all the Muslims" thing. And like for a while, that might actually have been like a direction I would have pursued content wise. But then the whole "we don't like women" thing happened from like Thunderfoot, and I kind of became disillusioned with the whole concept of like the Atheist Plus movement because it was weird, and had some funny ideas that kind of almost threw it back in the direction of being cultish. And so I kind of like I've come to a much softer view, I think, on faith, insofar as it doesn't intrude on people's public lives and ability to live, and that helps too. And kind of eventually, you don't stay mad forever, right? You're in a religion, and you come out of that religion. You don't stay mad forever. You have that view. You have the we must end religion because it is the evil that will destroy the world, and then you realize that the evil that will destroy the world will destroy it whether there's a god behind it or not. So I never thought this was something I was doing, and it's not really something I'm great at. And maybe I could get good, but I have X amount of time to devote between dialysis, and then I have to sleep off dialysis, and then I get up and I have to take care of the house and the pets. And so this suite of programs should lighten that workload considerably. Uh, and I hopefully let us start delivering better content, sourced content, between Canva doing our image editing. That's how I've put together, for example, the thing you see on the screen right now. And this letting us string those things together, edit the audio, balance the audio, etc. I think we'll be able to start putting out some pretty decent content and start to be able to push into the channel's original mission that I set out for us when we started. And hopefully, as we both grow as scholars, we'll be able to do a better job. Uh, because there are a lot of history channels, and we talk about them a lot, because people think you can just do history by flopping open a history book and saying, this happened in 1990, and therefore this effect, this effect, this effect. And it's a lot more complicated than that. And people should know and understand what they're doing. And I think it's cool to be able to give people the tools to investigate their own stories, because you come from a place and it has a story. And the biggest problem you find in our history is that history serves a purpose in school. It's designed around the goals of public education, and public education is designed to fuel nationalism. And so the myth of the United States is much more important to the education of American students than American history. So you can get Donald Trump going, well, the Smithsonian is focusing too much on the horrors of slavery. And the horrors of slavery are obviously a component part of our story. And we did these things, and they were horrible. And there's a certain level of accountability that comes from recounting them. They tell us what we did wrong and what we need to avoid doing. And those are important things. And they can become lost in these kind of regimes. So the idea behind doing history well is as much an act of resistance for me as going to a protest or gumming up the works of an ICE agent by throwing on a Mexican flag on your car. And it is for me it's important because we know the road we're on. Everyone knows it. We know how it ends, and we know it's bad. And so many people have just sleptwalk into it. I get frustrated. I still keep apprised of things. The current debate, obviously Destiny is crashing and burning. Hashtag, I called him out for being a sociopath a while ago. But obviously he's crashing and burning around the fact that he is a predator. And the people around him, like Wick and Erudite and Counterpoints and all those little DGG slime balls, have been pushing this narrative that it was the left that lost the election in 2024, and we have to excise the left, and they're just copying Brianna Wu mostly. And that's bullshit. Like, Erudite the other day tweeted out about one of those Jubilee debates. By the way, Jubilee is horrible. Don't watch it. But there's this fairly prominent black woman, and she's having a debate with a bunch of younger black activists who deny things like systemic racism. And she tweets out, "This kind of slop is why we lost." Obviously referring to the woman defending the concept of systemic racism existing. And I thought, wow, it's remarkable that this little Canadian girl wants to tell an American black woman what she can and can't talk about with regards to her own history. It's a pretty traditional line. These extremists have cost us the election. And what are the extremists? We'd like Medicare, please, for everyone. We'd like to be able to afford food. We'd like... the other one is Zohan Mandami in New York. I've watched that race with a lot of disappointment, not in him, but the Democratic Party, because he demonstrated to them why they lost in 2024. He spoke to people's needs. He energized people. He spoke to their fears, not in a way that was about amplifying them by blaming immigration or something like that. He spoke to their like, we need grocery stores so you can afford to get food. And he showed them a way forward that Kamala Harris simply didn't. And he's, by and large, being mostly rejected by mainstream Democratic politics. They're going to lose, I think, the Democrats in the midterms. They're going to throw away what should be the easiest electoral victory in their history because they're so terrified of looking at all like they might stand for people and embracing the fact that people need their problems addressed. They think that if they act like Republicans, the Republicans will stop hitting them. They've been beaten and abused for so long by a media machine they have no control over, that they think that if they just act just like them, it'll stop. Just like every abused person in their life. If I'm just enough like them, maybe they'll finally love me and stop. And that's not the case. So I hope he wins. I hope he shows people a way forward. I hope he sticks it in the eye of the people who don't, who think that the problem is some nebulous leftist. Because is there a real organized left? Not really. There's no project here on the left the way there is on the far right. So ultimately, I think I'm concerned. There are a lot of positive signs that say that conservatism will probably slip from power in a generation. The Bible Belt is in the process of becoming just the belt, but non-belief in secularism is affecting the South at an accelerating rate, ever accelerating. But by the nominal control that the Republicans are gaining over key institutions and have been building for generations is a very strong thing that you might not be able to undo without the disassembly of those institutions. I saw Stone Kettle, uh, fairly popular liberal blogger for decades now, on Blue Sky, pontificating about how we need uh, Nuremberg trials after this, and I'm like, no, no trials. Tribunals do it closed door. No one gets to sit and pontificate and make up shit. And that's an extreme view, I think. I think most people in the chat right now would go, Jesus Christ, he's gone around the bend. But democracy has a right to defend itself, and the Democratic Party advocated that right by even allowing Donald Trump to run. In what sane world would you allow a man who vows to destroy your very foundation of your system the opportunity to do so in an open election? The country had a right to defend itself, and they abdicated that right, and they have continued to abdicate any responsibility for that with this weak sauce shit. Gavin Newsom doing his little Twitter spree isn't that impressive to me. JB Pritzker is slightly more impressive, but until he puts the rubber on the road, it's all just words. And the Democrats have talked and talked and talked. No, Palm, that they all, that like, a lot of them should be in jail. A lot of them just went through a pageant and allowed Donald Trump to get elected because they were too afraid. They were too afraid of getting hit for doing the right thing. And that is not what leadership is. Doesn't make you worthy to lead. So I gotta confess, the last 7 months, 8 months have left me pretty disillusioned with the Democratic Party, of which I have been a voting member for much of my life. Not because I agree fully with Democrats, but because they're far better than Republicans. But if the Democratic Party does nothing in the face of this descent and dive into the most disgusting authoritarianism possible, then of what value is the Democratic Party? None. It is of no value. It is simply there sucking oxygen from a room that might have otherwise produced better people who might have better chances of doing better jobs. This in and of itself, for me, particularly when you consider how much of a moderate leftist I am, is probably a pretty significant turn, I think. But I'm sitting right now in a district that is now controlled by Lauren Boebert because she decided to come down out of the mountain where she had lost and win in Weld County here in Colorado. And they're making fucking signs. I'm unimpressed. So we're going to come out the other side of this, I think. Two guys talking history, rather, will come out the other side of this, my particular issues. Hetman's desire to get a PhD, I think better, stronger, and we're going to do a good job. And we're going to start pushing these things a lot more. We're going to try to build this into a real platform that can both educate people on how to do history and to help highlight those stories that are getting lost. And we're going to ask for your help. You guys, a lot of you are in this chat right now, are people who show up concurrently even when I don't show up regularly, and I appreciate the hell out of you. I really do. Everyone says the key to YouTube is consistency, and I'm not consistent, but you guys are here so often, and I appreciate it so much. So I want to thank you, really, for all of that, because I think the thing I was most afraid of when I started this was no one was going to give a shit and want to listen. And I mean, it's not like we're a big channel, but we're bigger than I ever imagined we were going to be now. And I think we can go farther by doing better. I think we can go farther by changing our strategies and starting to embrace some of this. And we're going to try. So that's really all I got for you tonight. I wanted to tell you what's going on, particularly those of you who are such regular supporters and viewers, and I appreciate the hell out of you. So as we go on, I'll keep people apprised of to what's happening as much as I'm willing to, both with myself and with Hetman, and hopefully we will hear some good news for him soon about getting accepted to a PhD program. And we will work on. I want to have, by the end of October, both of these essays released. I have to learn how to use the tool and get this thing finished. And I hope they're good. But with that, I want to thank you again for showing up tonight. Like the stream so other people see it. And have a good night.
For God, and you believe it's right to risk your home, your life, to face the evil night. But in the darkest night, when our children are asleep, I think about the families of our enemies. Feel the same, believe in their own truth. They must love the children as fiercely as we do. We all share one thing, our hearts were given from above, and the only thing worth fighting for in this world is love. On and on through the years, the war continues on. For God, and you believe it's right to risk your home, your life, to face the evil night. But in the darkest night, when our children are asleep, I think about the families of our enemies.